According to a new Quinnipiac University poll, Bernie Sanders has now surged ahead of Hillary Clinton in Iowa. Now, as I said, Bernie Sanders now leads Hillary Clinton 41 to 40% among likely Democratic caucus goers in Iowa. Now, contrast that to earlier, where Clinton was at 52% among Iowa's likely Democratic caucus goers versus 33%. So as you see, Sanders has been rising. Now, technically, they're still in the margin of error. However, this shows a huge increase in support for Bernie Sanders. So this is actually a really good poll. In fact, the Peter A. Brown, who's the assistant director of the Quinnipiac University poll, says, quote, and he has a reason to why he's seen this surge. Sanders is the candidate of the Democratic left against his own party bosses and their prized presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton. Their prized presidential candidate. And we've seen that. We've seen that with the reduction in the number of debates that we have. It seems like the establishment has already kind of made their decision. And here comes Sanders kind of knocking over their sandcastles, kicking over their beehives and saying, hey, no, you haven't made a decision yet. Let's have a race. Let's have a primary. I love it. Now, it's not all good news, because there's another poll that also came out last weekend. It was a NBC News Marist poll that actually said that Hillary Clinton was actually at 48% versus Sanders 37%. Now, with Joe Biden, because everybody's talking about, oh, Joe's going to enter the race. Joe's going to enter the race. He's going to come in. He's going to set everything. Like, that's like the establishment hope that Joe Biden's going to jump in. Now, I don't have anything against Joe. I think Joe's fine. I think Joe's kind of like the, slightly creepy uncle, but generally a decent, good guy. Has some good policies. A good thing. Good guy. I don't have a problem with Joe. What I do have a problem with is all this, the establishment saying, Joe, come on, Joe. Jump in there, Joe. We need you, man. You have a perfectly good, viable, progressive candidate in Bernie Sanders. Why do we need Joe Biden? But nonetheless, Joe Biden's very popular within not just the Democratic establishment, but a lot of people like him. As I said, I like him. That doesn't mean I want him to be president. I'm already in favor of Bernie Sanders. But nonetheless, with Biden in the poll, Clinton had 38% and Sanders at 27%. So basically, Biden would polled at 20% in this NBC News Marist poll. Well, he took from both Sanders and Clinton. So for his 20%. So, as I said, people from both camps would be able to support Joe Biden if he were to jump in the race. Now, another problem. I'm a Sanders supporter. But let me make that clear. But according to some of the demographics in these polls, and this is like an aggregate, right? The problem with our campaign, with Sanders' campaign, is that right now, I mean, it is early, but right now, a majority of people supporting Sanders are like me, white and liberal men. Now, there's a lot of women for backing Bernie Sanders as well. However, Sanders is still behind when it comes to women. Clinton leads Sanders 49 to 35% among female likely caucus goers. And that's not to mention that Hillary Clinton still has a majority of African Americans and Latinos. Now, as I said, it's still early and there's a lot of time to outreach. And Sanders has been doing a great job in doing that, hiring Simone Sanders, which of course has no relation, as onto his campaign. And of course, releasing these racial justice platforms. Yesterday, we reported on his bill that he's planning to introduce that would get rid of private prisons within 2 years. So if that isn't great outreach to the African American community, I don't know what is. And the Latino community as well, because there's a lot of there's a lot of Latino immigrants that are undocumented that get put in these for-profit prisons. Good outreach. So I think as Sanders continues to broaden his message and get more name recognition, that'll change. But still, that is an issue facing the Sanders campaign, is lack of support from minority communities and women. But that is changing. That is changing. Now, this poll also went into the ideas of leadership, trustworthiness, and favorability. I like some of these. Now, according to the poll, likely caucus participants said they have a favorable view of Clinton by 76 to 20%, earning trustworthiness marks of 64 to 30% and 78 to 18%. Saying she cares about their problems. By a count of 92 to 7%, voters said that the former Secretary of State has strong leadership qualities, and 89% said she had the right temperament to tackle an international crisis, compared with 9% who didn't think so. So, among Democrats, among the Democratic base, Hillary Clinton, very strong on leadership. Right? Strong leadership and had the right temperament to tackle an international crisis. So people see her and say, yeah, she could do it. She could do the job. I have no doubts that she could do the job. Whether or not she's progressive enough for me is my main argument against her. And I think a lot of Sanders supporters agree. So what about Sanders? Well, in favorability, he fares a lot better than Hillary Clinton. Let's see. On favorability, in this poll, he drew a higher net favorability rating of 72, plus 72, 78 to 6%, and a higher share, 86 to 4%, of those saying he is trustworthy than they did of Clinton. By a count of 85 to 5%, people said the senator cares about their issues. Asked about Sanders' leadership qualities, 76% said they were strong, compared to 9% who said they were not. On his temperament in times of crisis, voters approved of him by 65% to 15%. So that, of course, that perception needs to be worked on, that he would be strong in an international crisis. So this new sampling also finds an enthusiasm boost among Iowa's likely Democratic caucus goers for Biden, as he, of course, tries to make his decision. Pollsters found 12% of support for Biden in the Hawkeye State, up from 7% from Quinnipiac's sampling in July. So what about everybody else? Well, we also have Jim Webb. We also have Martin O'Malley. We also have Lincoln Chafee. Well, Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee, they're not even on the charts, man. However, former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley stands at about 3%. So there's sort of your breakdown of this poll. What you can gather from it is that Bernie Sanders in Iowa continues to rise, but he does need to do more outreach with African Americans and Latinos, or at least get more name recognition among them and get his policy positions out there. Because I think once people look at these policy positions, you're a woman, if you're an African American, if you're a Latino, you're going to look at his policy position and go, yeah, those are better. I like those policies.